Hi and welcome. I'm Looby Macnamara and I'm here today with Kathleen O'Hara-Farron, and we're going to tell you a bit about cultural emergence and some of the core routines. So some of the core routines are like practices that we bring into our everyday lives, so that it's not just a one-off activity we do, but it's something that really becomes part of our daily rhythm and really then has the power and the potential to make changes in our own personal cultures as well as our family cultures and beyond. So Kathleen, would you like to share which of the core routines you're going to talk about today?
Well, because they're all connected, and the one that I've been living with has been most helpful, and that is responsibility, being responsible for myself, and as it turns out, responsible for my surroundings. So I like it because it's a centering practice. I also have spent time doing a lot of collaborating, and it means working with people in a way that you bring out the best in each other. So there are two that I could talk a wee bit about.
Yeah, please do. Please share about the, particularly the responsibility. How has that kind of informed your daily lives?
It's really helped. You know, what I liked about the cultural emergence is that when I did it, it was the summertime and it kind of settled in. And then in the winter time, I did more looking reflectively, but looking at the way I do things, and then trying out doing things in a new way, in a way that felt right. And then you realize how the more care you give yourself in like allowing yourself to try out new things, and the more responsible you are for the way you eat, the way you are with people. That's a hard one to change sometimes. And being responsible for yourself means that you're not needy anymore. You're not like a leech, or you're not like codependent in an unhealthy way, which has been the practice of, like, that's what happens in the way things have been going in culture, in society. So, and then it has meant for me a lot of being very nice and kind and gentle to myself. And I really welcome that, because there's enough guilt and grief and, you know, the harder things to go forward. So much of this is about evolving. And then when I start to look at that, I realize it's happening in every moment, whether or not you're supporting it. So we are growing, even though it doesn't look like it. But when you hang around children, it actually is easier in a way, because they're growing all the time. So yeah, so responsibility for self means to bring yourself along in a nice way, so that the goodness that you have within just gets a chance to shine. So it certainly has brought out a very optimistic and it's very pleasant to experience that when you're responsible for yourself, everything else falls nicely into place as well. So I don't know if that helps at all.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's really lovely. And to feel that it's a self-responsibility to be our best selves, and that includes the self-care as well. So that's really lovely. Thank you for that, Kathleen.
Yeah. I mean, it means that I'm more available to collaborate with people as well. So that was the other. I mean, there's a couple of dozen, what are they called, core routines, things that you do in life in this cultural emergence. And what I've discovered then is when I'm able to work, I can work with people in a much healthier way. You know, things flow much, much better. And I think that's what this whole thing is about, is how to help things flow and how to set the scene for yourself and your family and your workplace so that it flows. So I get to collaborate. I'm finding it much easier to work with people and create together. So I like that kind of, as things emerge, you take it, you explore, how can I make this into a creation? How can I make it into an event? How can I make it into an object that we can all share? So that's the kind of way, it's a lovely way to change your way of thinking. So it supports the kind of You see, basically, in a wee nutshell, you see all these lovely books that have become part of my favorite books Bible selection. 7 Ways to Think Differently, People in Permaculture, and The Coyote's Guide to Connecting with Nature. What the Cultural Emergence does for me is gives me a head start on, instead of reading them, I'm actually experiencing them. So.
Yeah, well, totally. They came from a kind of amalgamation of my work and John's work there with those 3 books, and how we can bring that together to really be proactive and dynamic in creating this culture that we want to create, which is based on the permaculture ethics of earth care, people care, and fair shares. And is really how can we grow those ethics in our own lives, in our communities, and rippling out from there and being proactive and dynamic in that. And the core routines that I wanted to talk about today was about naming and reframing, and a wise wording as well. And it's all about how we use our language and how we can use it to really highlight and to surface what are the underlying beliefs that we have, and the cultural conditioning that we've grown up with, and how we can maybe unpick at that and create then space for visioning what we actually do want. And it can be quite subtle, this as well, how it works. And the reframing, there's a great permaculture principle, the problem is the solution, and it's kind of reframing from like going, this is really the problem, how can we get rid of it, to okay, well, looking at it differently, what are the characteristics of this issue that we've got, and how can we actually acknowledge them, appreciate them, and utilize those characteristics to find a solution. So that's kind of one way in which we use the reframing. And then with the wise wording, it can be I was doing a mentoring session the other day with someone, and she was talking about how she was going to kind of force herself to speak up more. And I said, well, force yourself, how about proactively encourage yourself? And it's just like, yeah, that sounds much nicer, doesn't it, to rather than forcing yourself to do something, to be proactively encouraging yourself. So it can be quite subtle shifts that then kind of unpick our beliefs. So it can be like, if we're saying, oh, I can't do something, it's like, well, I can't do it yet, or I can only do a bit of it at the moment. So allowing that space for growth and change, rather than it being a kind of like absolute belief that is presented as fact that can't be changed. So it just allows that possibility of change to be there, and allowing for some more visioning to come in, and so thereby it gives us a sense of empowerment and invigoration to then move forwards.
That's lovely. I mean, I see it in action, and that's the whole thing about this. When we do the foundation courses, you're giving one in June this 2017, and well, there's something emerging, hey?
Yes.
What's that? New life?
I thought it was a little cat there, but little person saying hello.
I'll get it for you soon, okay? I think she's very curious about what's going on.
Well, she's probably been experiencing the cultural emergence that's happening with her mother, and what you brought in.
Yeah, well, she's actually my teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, the family are your best teacher, because when something emerges, you just have to go with it. And it's not like what a curious child did is wrong, you know, even though we want to discuss what's coming up next month and the month after, you know, month of June and the month of July, in your place in Hertfordshire and my place up in Donegal, that and also there's room for children at this Cultural Emergence Foundation course, which is, you know, if anyone's interested, just get in touch. So much of this is not like saying it's got to be this way. I've got a plan to go from A to B and that's it. So what you're talking about is like, there isn't a problem, and what is in front of us is for us. And in fact, even there may not be a problem at all. There's always a solution. So
yeah.
So it's like what we've got is, we've got this wonderful description of everything is connected. So you might take one of the principles, but in actual fact, if you move a little bit, if you allow yourself to do things in a different way, all the rest fall into place, and it's like the rest of the family fall into place as well. So it's a lovely process, and I can see it working in businesses and schools and just the way people are with each other. And that's what my experience was at the training course for Cultural Emergence.
Yeah, lovely. So yeah,
so what next, Looby?
Yeah, well, if you're interested in more in cultural emergence, please like our Facebook page, Cultural Emergence, and you'll find details of our courses there and more stories about cultural emergence. So look forward to hearing from you, and hope some of you can join in the cultural emergence adventure. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Great. Cheerio.